Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, this task of introducing our speaker for the session is a great privilege. I feel elated and truly blessed to introduce His Holiness Shri Swami Veereshananda Saraswathi Swamiji, President, Ramakrishna Vivekananda Ashrama, Tumkur, who is going to talk us on education, the panacea. Swamiji completed his BE in Electronics and Communication from Mysore University. His source of inspiration is most revered Swami Purushottamanandaji Maharaj, Ramakrishna Mission. Swamiji has participated in various programs and delivered lectures on various topics. The important ones are special discourse in the All India Ramakrishna Vivekananda Bhava Prachara Parishad Convention held at Beluru Mutt Headquarters, Ramakrishna Mission, Kolkata, West Bengal. Fourth World Parliament of Religions, July 2004, held at Barcelona, Spain. Special discourse in the National Cultural Festival at Turin, Italy. Special discourse in Turin and Genoa Universities of Italy. 150th birth anniversary celebration of Swami Vivekananda and consecration of Sri Lalita Parameshwari Idol in Italy. Chief guest on 2018 International Yoga Day in Rome and Milan, Italy, and in Paris, France. Vedaghosha program at the residence of His Holiness Pope Francis in the Vatican. Akka Sammelan in the USA 2012 September. International Leadership Training Camp at Seoul, South Korea in 2007. Special satsangs in London at Nehru Center, Indian Embassy, Swami Narayan Gurukula and Sri Lankan community. Special discourses for students in more than 100 engineering and polytechnic colleges in Karnataka. Swamiji was instrumental in conducting and organizing various effective programs like Vidyarthi Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Deena Devo Bhava, and cultural events. Under the program Vidyarthi Devo Bhava, following events were organized. Special discourses for more than 10 lakh students in the last 25 years. Competitive written examinations on books based on personality development have been conducted for around 1.6 lakh high school students in Tumkur district and the neighboring 5 districts since 1992. Vivekananda Yuvaka Sangha for boys, Nivedita Niketana for girls, and Balaka Sanghas guiding youth on values. Under the program Acharya Devo Bhava, following events were organized. Discourses for more than 1 lakh teachers, TCS students, lecturers, and professors. Vivekananda Dhyayanishta Sikshaka Sangha, guidance to teachers on moral and spiritual topics. Under the program Deena Devo Bhava, Shri Mata Shri Sharada Devi's birthday is celebrated as Jivanta Durga Puja Day every year. On this occasion, poor and destitute women dwelling in the slums are invited to ashram and worshipped as Holy Mother Sharda Devi herself. They are given food grains and clothes. More than 8,000 poor women have been benefited by this program in the last 25 years. Shri Ashrama has also organized cultural events like Sharada Madhurya, a platform for musicians where more than 25 music performances by national and international musicians have been conducted. Swamiji also involved keenly in literary activities. Some of the notable ones are editor of Vivekadipti, bi-monthly magazine of Tumakuru Ashrama, Swami Vivekananda and Manava Abhyudaya book published by Tumakuru University, Shankara Bhagavat-Padra Bhakti Gite, an audio CD of bhajans, audio CDs of discourses published by Gokhale Institute, Bengaluru, Jeevana Darshana, Margadarshana programs on Doordarshan and Chintana programs on All India Radio, Vivekadhare, over 100 articles published in state level Vijayawani daily newspaper. Following are some of the honors and awards conferred to Pujya Swamiji. Swamiji was conferred with honorary doctorate by Tumakuru University during the 5th convocation held on 11th November 2011. He is the recipient of Siddhaganga Shri Shivakumar Award by world-renowned Siddhaganga Mutt in 2017. Swamiji was also conferred with Area Award by the prestigious Canara Education Society, Mangaluru. Swamiji also gave lectures in various institutions as NAC resource person. We are truly blessed to have His Holiness Shri Swami Veereshananda Saraswathi Mahaswamiji as speaker for today's program. We are eager to listen to you, Swamiji.
Om Pavitram Charitam Yasyaha Pavitram Jeevanam Tatha Pavitrata Swarupinyai Tasyai Kurmo Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shakti Rupena Samsthita. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shraddha Rupena Samsthita. Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Salutations at the holy feet of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Mata, Sri Sharada Devi, and Srimad Swami Vivekananda ji, and the local deity of Mysore, Jagannatha Sri Chamundeshwari. My special thanks to the ATME Engineering College, situated in Mysore, for organizing a very meaningful convention, a faculty development program for 4 days. And I felt very happy to know that we have people from more than 23 states all over the country taking part in this wonderful program. My respects to Dr. Arun Kumar, the chairman of this esteemed institution. My respects to Dr. Karasiddappa, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Vishweshwaraya Technological University of Karnataka. My respects to all the board of directors of this institution. My special respects to Sister Dr. Bhagyashri for inviting me to be a part of this program. She contacted me almost 3-4 months before, got my diary reserved for today's program, and at every point of the arrangement, she used to inform me about the developments that were taking place. And my respects to all the people who have contributed their might in organizing this program in a very successful way. I do love addressing the teaching faculty because it is ultimately the greatest resource we can rely upon in the process of building the nation, or none other than the teaching fraternity of our country. Education, as beautifully defined from Sanatana Parampara, Sa Vidya Ya Vimuktayet, is a must, which ultimately makes the greatest difference between human and subhuman. From time immemorial, we have come across a galaxy of luminaries who have very meaningfully appreciated the greatest necessity of this virtue, education. Going to the pages of Sri Ramayana, that is Treta Yuga, Sri Rama once said to his brother Lakshmana, Lakshman, mother is greater than earth, father is greater than heaven, Janani Janma Bhumischa Swargadapi Gariyasi, which means mother and motherland are superior even than heaven. This wonderful sentence speaks about the importance of mother, father, family, and our reverential attitude towards our country, which means the patriotic spirit, what we are expected to develop in our personality. The Japanese proverb sheds light on the same concept of the family system. Father's goodness is higher than mountains. Mother's goodness is deeper than sea is a great belief among the Japanese. These utterances from the ancient pages of scriptures of different countries, it will definitely help us to realize the importance of education in the kingdom of Homo sapien. I have been asked to talk on the subject education, the panacea. I'm very happy to bring to your kind notice that the UGC extended hand, that is National Assessment and Accreditation Council, requested me a few months back to deliver a series of 12 lectures for a period of 1 year on the subject of the 7 criteria propounded by NAC. I'm enjoying that part of responsibility in defining the criteria under the light of the ancient educational wisdom of India. And it is an excellent program to bring to your kind notice that the ideals propounded by NAC and as the today's program is very much in support with the National Educational Policy of 2020, it sheds light on how we have to make our education more effective and creative so that ultimately it results in building a strong nation at large. When I defined about the importance of father, mother, and teacher, at the same time, we must understand the other face of the coin by studying the seriousness in the next sentence. To be in your children's memory tomorrow, you have to be in their lives today. My dear parents, teachers, and elders of today's society, if you want to remain in the memory of children's tomorrow, if you expect our children, the students, to remember you in their tomorrow life, mind you, we must be there in their lives today. That is most important. That means to say, here at every point of time, our younger generation must enjoy our company in their day-to-day life, must take our advice seriously, and at any point of time, they should not feel that it is something like a punishment they are facing. Rather, they must enjoy our advice and wholeheartedly, to the best of their ability, they must implement whatever we advise to them. As Bhagavad-Gita rightly said, Yadyadacharati sheshtaha tatta devetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanu vartate. The role of the elders, it plays a vital part in formulating the lives, the future of the younger generation. That is why there is a dictum in English which goes like this: the sins of the parents visit their sons. Even though it sounds a bit harsh, it is ultimately the reality of truth which reveals out the fact that whatever the elderly personalities in the family and in the society does, that will be something like a torch in the life of the younger generation. That is why when we study great luminaries, great educationalists all over the world from time immemorial, we will understand at every point of time how they could shed light on the importance of so-called the elders of the family and society at large. To quote C.E. Barker, a very renowned psychologist, he says, mothers, once they are aware of it, have the key to bring the world back to sanity. A generation of good mothering would make an unbelievable contribution towards producing this civilization that work for stability and peace of the society and the nation. One generation of good mothering can bring remarkable changes in the society. So here comes the importance of good mothering in the family and in the society. So in continuation with this, let us think about the importance of education, because the title of today's lecture is Education, the Only Panacea. It is the only panacea for all human problems. As we all know, Manusmriti, Parashara Smriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, they are very old Smritis and popularly known among the populace of the world. It is said that Friedrich Nietzsche valued Manusmriti to a very great extent, and it is recorded in his life biography that for any clarification from Bible, Nietzsche used to refer to Manusmriti for clarification. Manusmriti says, mother is the image of earth, father is the image of Prajapati, and teacher is the image of Brahman. When we study earth, Prajapati and Brahman, that is enough to make our life a life of earning the greatest essence of education. Vidura Niti, it quotes during Mahabharata time, Yekam tyajet kulasyarthe, gramasyarthe kulam tyajet, gramam janaparasyarthe, atmarthe prithvi tyajet. A great saying of Vidura. Vidura was a saint during Mahabharata time. He was very much honored by Lord Krishna also. The meaning of this shloka is, for the sake of the family, you have to sacrifice an individual. For the sake of the village, you must sacrifice a family. For the sake of the nation, you have to sacrifice a village, and ultimately, in the interest of self-realization, in the interest of Atma-jnana, you have to sacrifice the whole world. What a great essence you come across here. So if you want to establish yourself in self-realization, Atma-jnana, you must keep the entire world aside. See, these are the utterances of great rishis of ancient times. Aristotle, a great philosopher the world has recorded, has said, all who have meditated on the art of governing mankind have been convinced that the fate of the empires depends on the education of the youth. The empires cannot survive only with arms and ammunitions, only with the military strength. Rather, Aristotle very clearly says, more and more you educate the youth of the society morally and ethically, that speaks about the longevity of such empires. It is worth realizing the words of Aristotle, I mean. Horashman, another great thinker, says, a human being is not in any proper sense a human being till he is educated. The same type of message you come across even in Raja Bhartruhari's Niti Shatakam, which says, Vidyanama narasya rupamadhikam prachanna guptam dhanam vidya bhogakari yashassukhakari vidya guru nam guruhu vidya bandhujane videshagamane vidya devata vidya rajasu pujyate natu dhanam vidya vihinaha pashuhu. I repeat the last two lines. Vidya rajasu pujyate natu dhanam vidya vihinaha pashuhu. The greatest difference between a human and a subhuman lies in the fact of the matter of education. Even the emperor will worship Saraswathi and not Lakshmi. Vidya rajasa pujyate natu dhanam. These words are from 6th century AD of Indian history. You just imagine 1500 years back, Raja Bhartruhari proclaimed Vidya rajasa pujyate natu dhanam vidya vihinaha. He who is without education is a beast, pashuhu. Euripides says, whosoever neglect learning during youth he has lost his past and he is dead to the future. So education is a must. In the contemporary time of our existence, more and more we engage ourselves in learning. We can have an excellent past and equally a great future in years to come. Swami Vivekananda, a great educationalist, a great patriotic saint of India, a true humanist who was recognized all over the world, he has made quite a great amount of research on the importance of education. In fact, the subject for today's lecture it is something very much what Vivekananda has proclaimed during his lifetime. Education is the only panacea. Swami Vivekananda is a special personality because he can convince people of any age, any temperament, and of any mindset. He defined life as the unfoldment and development of a being under circumstances tending to press it down. He says, life is a continuous struggle, life is a challenge, and it is a continuous journey. We have to solve the previous problems, and after gaining experience out of that, we must equip ourselves to face the new challenges in our future years. So Swamiji says, the life is the unfoldment and development. You must sprout out. You must manifest. And not only that, you should not remain stagnant. You must march forward so that your life will be a journey of truth. Your life will be a journey of evolution. It is something like our movement from lower truth to higher truth. And this is what Vivekananda defined education as. He says, education is the progressive discovery of our ignorance. Education gets accelerated by more and more we really strive for knowing the higher level of truth. And he says, this wonderful process of evolution gets accelerated by this phenomenon called education. Education, in a very large perspective, is, as the old dictum of India, the Sanatana Rishis said, Savidya ya vimuktayet. This is an excellent definition for the term education. Very unfortunately, we have equated education to mass education. Thereby, we have dragged the quality of education very much low, very much low. And more or less, we are equating the literacy program to education nowadays. We say, he who knows how to read and write is termed as educated. But that is not enough, because as the world advances, we must know education should not be confined only to information. Rather, as Vivekananda rightly said, education must give us knowledge and wisdom in later course, in addition to the information. Swami Vivekananda defined education as the manifestation of perfection that is already in man. Education is the manifestation of perfection that is already in man. So every human being is perfect. The innate nature of every human being is perfect. The spirit, the divinity that is dwelling within us is not imperfect. It is always perfect. Swami Vivekananda, while defining about the founders of different religions of the world, he says Hindutva, Hinduism, doesn't have any definite founder as such. It is called Sanatana. It is more dependent on the eternal values propounded by the ancient rishis of India, and the contribution cannot be attributed to a single personality like what we do with respect to the other religions. To make his statement more clear, to justify his way of presenting the things, he says, yes, the gravitational force was existing, even it was discovered before Newton. That means to say, Newton did not create gravitational force. He could only discover gravitational force that was already prevailing in Mother Earth. Like that, Sri Vivekananda says, Gayatri Mantra, the Vedas were already there in nature, and it was Vishwamitra, it was great rishis of ancient India who could discover these mantras. So, Sanatana Dharma, even though it has given birth to Yajnavalkya, Vasishta, Krishna, and so many great personalities, they are very much, they come under the purview of Sanatana Dharma, and they are not very much important for the survival of Sanatana Dharma. These are the words of Swami Vivekananda while discussing about the eternity of Hindutva with Sir Khurshid Za, a very popular officer of Hyderabad Nizam's tenure, Vivekananda could convince Sir Khurshid Shah, a very highly educated man of the time, who had traveled and visited almost all the great pilgrimage centers of India, but he had quite a good number of doubts, suspicion about the Hindu way of idol worship, about the founder of Hinduism, so on and so forth. Swami Vivekananda could convince him beyond doubt about the truth that is prevailing. Swami Vivekananda, as he rightly said, education is the manifestation of perfection that is already in man. What an excellent definition Swamiji could give. We must introspect on this matter of education and the way Swamiji has defined it. Swamiji says, men are more valuable than all the wealth of the world. The value of any human being is the highest compared to the value of all the material prosperity of the world. This is the greatest lesson what we learn from Bhagavad-Gita, what we learn during the conversation between Nachiketa and Yama. When Yama wanted to offer huge amount of wealth to Nachiketa, the boy Nachiketa, who was below 10 years, he openly rejected the offer of Yama, the death god, and said, I want the knowledge of Atman, and you cannot satisfy me just by providing me surplus of material prosperity. See, this is the greatness of Indian philosophy. Here, in Indian philosophy, you will never come across a great saint who surrendered to kingdoms, who surrendered in the process of accepting the queens, the beautiful girls, and leading a life of prosperity for a few centuries. Rather, they were striving hard, they did all penance with a longing to have the greatest Atma-jnana, the knowledge about the self. That is why Swamiji says, men are more valuable than all the wealth of the world. We must understand this. And in continuation, he says, is enjoyment the goal of life? Were it so, it would be a tremendous mistake to become a man at all. That means to say, the goal of life in Sanatana Parampara is not something like mere enjoyment, enjoying the material prosperity, the bhuta, the materialistic wealth, I mean. And Swamiji says, this is a very, very alarming fact, what Swamiji could observe, and out of his own experience, out of his own rushitva, he could present before the modern generation about the limitation of the material prosperity. Swamiji says, the education which procures more pleasures, more food, will become glorious at the first sight and then will degrade and degenerate. Along with the prosperity, will rise to whitehead all the inborn jealousies and hatreds of the human race. So this speaks about the limitation of that particular education system which aims in fetching or offering, only the enjoyment in the material level, in the sensual level of life. Swami Vivekananda cautioned Indians about the very, very weakest education system that was proclaimed, that was introduced in Indian scenario by Lord Macaulay. Swamiji says, the Western education that you are getting now, way back to 1893, when Swamiji openly declared about the limitation, the defects and deficiencies of the Western education, he says, the Western education that you are getting now has some good points, but it has got a tremendous disadvantage, which is so great that the good things are weighed down. Swamiji says the Western education is merely and entirely a negative system of education. He says the child is taken to the school and the first thing he learns is that his father is a fool, his grandfather is a lunatic. The third lesson is that all his teachers are hypocrites. And the fourth lesson the child learns is that all the sacred books of your land are lies. By the time the child is 16, he is a mass of negations, lifeless and boneless. That's why Swami Vivekananda says the Western education is turning out Indians to people who are next door neighbors to brutes. Keeping this in mind, after he experienced the temperament of so-called learned people of the contemporary society of his time, he openly declared, give light to poor and more light to rich. Give light to uneducated and more light to educated. More light to educated. This means that even though people with so much of literacy could not differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. So Swami Vivekananda, respecting the words of his great guru Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, defined education of the heart to his countrymen in these words. We may be most intellectual people of the world ever saw, and yet we may not come to God at all. It is the heart which takes one to the highest plane, which intellect can never reach. Always cultivate the heart. Through the heart, the Lord speaks, and not through your brain, he cautions. These are the words of his own guru. When there is a conflict between brain and heart, my dear friends, we must listen to the words of the heart first. Swami Vivekananda exhorts us to shed weakness and be manly. He says, we have wept long enough. No more weeping, but stand on your feet and be men. It is a man-making religion that we want. It is man-making theories that we want. It is man-making education all round that we want. And here is the test of truth. Anything that makes you weak, physically, intellectually, and spiritually, reject as poison. There is no life in it. It cannot be true. Truth is strengthening. Truth is purity. Truth is all knowledge. Truth must be strengthening, enlightening, and invigorating. These are the words of great Swami Vivekananda. So when we analyze education, in the light of the utterances of such luminaries, then only we can understand that education is the only panacea for all human problems. In continuation, Swami Vivekananda says, we want that type of education by which character is formed, strength of the mind is increased, intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. My dear friends, as a graduate of electronics and communication engineering, and with my experience of associating myself with the technical world in the last 35 years or so, it is really alarming to know that majority of the engineering graduates of today's world are unemployable. Their knowledge, their wisdom about technical subjects is minimal. The whole world is facing this problem because we have reduced education to the process of learning and thereby turning out our youngsters into literates rather than man of wisdom. And this is really alarming. Swami Vivekananda beautifully defined that education must aim for man-making and character building. Personality development, education, nation building, they're all but complementary to each other. See, education must aim at man-making. Man-making means character building. And it is through character building we can build the nation. So ultimately, education must yield everything that will supplement the greatest process of building the nation strong and vibrant. So Vivekananda says, the first and the foremost fruit, the yield of good education is the production of men of great character. Character is education. We must know that. We have so much pertaining to acquiring the intellectual knowledge, acquiring information in our institutions, but unless and until we come across men of character energy, all other earnings will not suffice as far as the real purpose of education is concerned. I want to quote Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of United States of America. Jefferson says, who thought democracy was natural, said as clearly as possible that there was no democracy without education. This is not pity or platitude. People cannot succeed without the ability to think about alternatives, evaluate courses of action, and weigh consequences. All these come with education. Education. These are the words of Thomas Jefferson. You just imagine the scenario of India today. See, we have been brought in the journey of only making our children, our previous generations, about the weakness that was prevailing in Indian society. We never come across half a dozen of the kings of ancient India who became victorious when they fought against the foreign invasion. We never quote the inventions and discoveries of the native people. We never quote the grandeur and gaiety of Indian ancient wisdom. We never quote the greatest essence from our epics Ramayana and Mahabharata. You have so many people who are getting lakhs and lakhs of rupees salary per month, but they don't know half a dozen of names of great poets of this country. They don't know about Srinivasa Ramanujam, who was very much honored. I'm quoting just an example for your information. He was so much capable to face even Jacobi and Euler, the greatest mathematicians of his time. Dr. Hardy, the professor who identified Srinivasa Ramanujam, at one point of time, he said, undoubtedly, Srinivasa Ramanujam is the most effective mathematician of the contemporary world, but a very, very, very foolishly religious. This was the certificate given to Srinivasa Ramanujam by his teacher J.H. Hardy. Ramanujam did not survive more than 30 years, but in spite of that, he could create a record in the history of mathematics. But our children are not aware of such facts. Our textbook authors, I doubt whether they know these facts of Indian history pertaining to different subjects like astrology, psychology, nuclear physics, the Anuvijnana, the scientific temperament, physics, so on and so forth. Yoga, meditation, so on and so forth. So, my dear friends, even today you have observed in our newspapers, it is not that easy to establish a Sanskrit university in a state, and it is not that easy to teach a language, Devanagari, Sanskrit, to the students of the society of contemporary world. This speaks about the weakness, the dullness of our brains. We were taught that all the ancient stuff of India was of no use, and ultimately people started seeing India in the specs, in the glasses of the Westerners. They being the foreigners, they did not had that open mind, and they did not had unprejudiced mind to define and detect truth as it is. Yes, we do know that no great moralist was made so in a day, and at the same time, nor any one of them was a born moralist. The greatest truth is death is not tragic, really. Death is not tragic, really. Truly, our misfortune lies in what dies within us while we live. Death is a consequence. Birth and death are complementary according to Indian Sanatana Parampara. But between this birth and death, you have life. When the existence becomes lifeless, when our own interest towards knowing great things becomes very minimal, reluctant, I mean, we are more dead than alive, I must say. So this is what happened in the history of our country. That is why even today, when we quote the greatness of ancient India, when we insist people to study Sanskrit, and when I want to prove any latest scientific truth in the light of ancient scriptures like Bhagavad-Gita or Kathopanishad, Indian minds are not that easily acceptable, because till date we have been mesmerized, we have been brainwashed that anything good Indian wants to acquire, they have to extend their bowl in front of the Westerners to get the good. And West can be got only, good can be got only from the West. That is the logical conclusion of this prejudiced, very defective mind of contemporary India today. See, let us have a look at what Albert Einstein said about education. Einstein faced a lot of problems during his research work. I want to quote, just for reference, about how much he suffered because of his contemporary people like Hitler. Albert Einstein could establish the beautiful formula depicting the relationship between potential energy and matter. Way back to 1895, when Swami Vivekananda met Hiram Maxim, a great scientist of United States of America, and during their conversation, Swami Vivekananda, the spiritual scientist of that time, insisted Hiram Maxim to develop a principle, a formula, giving the relationship between the potential energy and matter. Hiram Maxim was quite serious in listening such a beautiful but a new thought from a monk of India, but somehow he could not show much interest in the matter of discovering a formula which gives the relation between mass and energy. But after 10 years, after the demise of Vivekananda, Albert Einstein discovered the beautiful formula relating the potential energy and the matter. That time, there was a serious conversation in the midst of galaxy of scientists of contemporary world about the reason why Hiram Maxim or any other scientist did not pursue in the matter of developing the relation formula between potential energy and matter. That was suggested by Saint of India, Swami Vivekananda. Albert Einstein faced a lot of tough consequences from the religious strata of his country. He fled from Germany to London, later on to the United States, because his life was in danger. Even Hitler wanted to kill him because Hitler had that idea of killing the Jews who were all over the world during his lifetime. Even another, I have forgotten his name, another Nobel Prize winner, he joined hands with Hitler in discouraging Albert Einstein. But later on, when Einstein discovered this beautiful phenomenon, later on, the scientists of his time, they gave three most important reasons why Vivekananda's conversation with Hiram Maxim could not reach a logical end during the lifetime of Swami Vivekananda. These instances are being recorded in English as well as in German language. It is very much available. The scientists, they gave three important reasons behind. Number one, the monks of Ramakrishna movement, they speak science as Vedantists and not as physicists. Number two, the physicists of the world, they speak about physics as physicists and not as Vedantists. The third and the final reason was, it was the European and American scientists. Generally, they used to misinterpret all the utterances of Albert Einstein. See, this speaks about the scientific superstitions that was prevailing during the time of Swami Vivekananda. Even today it is prevailing. If you say you have religious superstitions, at the same time you have the scientific superstitions also. Not a single flight in United States of America even today have seat number 13 because the number 13 is not a good omen for them. Majority of the states in United States of America even today, they don't recommend Darwin's theory of evolution because they say it is against their religious faith. We are reading in our daily newspapers even today that some percentage of Americans, they have not taken vaccination for COVID or Corona because it is against their religious beliefs. See, you have plenty of population in the West who are scientific superstitions even today, even in 21st century. So Albert Einstein, a great scientist the world has ever seen, who bagged 2 Nobel Prizes, he beautifully says, in his words, he gives a clear picture what should be the purpose of education. What is it? It is not enough to teach man a speciality. By teaching a speciality, a person may become a kind of useful machine, but not a harmoniously developed personality. It is essential that the student acquire an understanding of and a lively feeling for values. I repeat, values. He must acquire a vivid sense of the beautiful and of the morally good. Otherwise, he with his specialized knowledge more closely resembles a well-trained dog than a harmoniously developed personality. He must learn to understand the motives of human beings, their illusions, and their sufferings in order to a proper relationship to individual fellow men and to the community at large. Teach our children all beautiful things which are morally good is the total essence of the utterance of Albert Einstein. So, education must aim at making our generation morally and ethically strong. The other utterance of Einstein, the second utterance is, it is really alarming to know that when Einstein says this, I wish to keep my education away from my schooling. I wish to keep my education away from my schooling. My dear professors, my dear teachers, you just imagine what an ocean of difference lies between these two terminologies, education and schooling. According to Albert Einstein's utterance, it is very clear that our schooling is making our children to move far away from the real essence of education. The third utterance of Albert Einstein, the most important human endeavor is the striving for morality in our actions. If you want to call a man educated, you must take it for granted that he is a man of moral and ethical strength, and that is very much reflecting in all his actions. Our inner balance and even our very existence depends on morality in our actions. It is only morality in our actions that can give beauty and dignity to our life. Take the example of Swami Vivekananda or Thomas Jefferson or Albert Einstein. Here you come across the most important, the vital fruit of education, which is nothing but morality and character building. And this is the most important aspect every teacher is expected to know seriously while delivering his part of responsibility on the platform in the classrooms. And we must keep in our mind about at least the minimal knowledge that every graduate is expected to possess after he comes out of a university. I want to quote the words of Ortega Y. Gasset, the author of the book Mission of University. In his book, he beautifully mentions about how a graduate must be equipped by the time he completes his graduation and is being gifted to the society to serve the society and nation at large. The common knowledge that should be the common possession of all university graduates can be categorized into 5 fundamental areas. My dear teachers, a graduate pertaining to any subject, science, arts, commerce, management, medical, engineering, technical, non-technical, paramedical, so on and so forth, they must have some knowledge in 5 fundamental areas according to Gazette. The first fundamental area is the graduate must know something about the physical scheme of the universe. The graduate must know some knowledge about physics and chemistry. He may be from arts faculty, but he must know the basic physics and chemistry. The second fundamental area is fundamental themes of organic life. I mean biology. The third fundamental area is the historic process of human species. The graduate is expected to know something about history. The fourth structure, the fundamental area is the structure and functioning of social life. He must know something about sociology. And finally, the fifth fundamental area he is expected to know about is the plan and the purpose of the universe, which includes philosophy, culture, and religion of the land. This is most important because every graduate must have a minimal knowledge about all these fundamental 5 areas according to Ortega Y. Gasset, the author of the book Mission of Universities. This speaks volumes about the essence of education. And it is said that educated man is a man who knows about what is right and what is wrong. Is it true in the present scenario? When I quote John Ruskin, it is really shocking to know that to make your children capable of honesty is the beginning of education. Sincerity is the first chapter of the text of wisdom. As Will Durant, the world-renowned historian, said, education is the transmission of civilization. The children of today are the true ambassadors. They are the true transmitters of the civilization to the next forthcoming generations. I shall put it in the words of the Harvard realist philosopher Ralph Barton Perry, who beautifully defined education in these three sentences. Through education, men acquire the civilization of the past and are enabled both to take part in the civilization of the present and make the civilization of the future. In short, the purpose of education is threefold: inheritance, participation, and contribution. By undergoing a very effective education system, I can study the past civilization, I can be a participant in the contemporary civilization, and I can definitely contribute to the future civilization also. Why education is so much important? It is ultimately, it makes man out of this organic flesh. It is education which creates a Homo sapien, a man of psychosocial evolution, who was earlier in the subhuman species, was confined only to the organic identity. John Wilson, the director of research of Oxford, beautifully says the negative effect of neglecting educating the people of the society. What is that? The people of any country are like the adolescents of a family or a school who needs proper education and guidance so as to make their future safe and happy. Failure to do so may result in chaos or in some sort of indoctrination by a powerful agency. That is what we observe in developing countries. When people are not shed with the good ideas and ideals of education, they will be the victims in the hands of antisocial elements, the rowdy elements of the society, and they will perish. This is most important because the people of the society are compared to the adolescent children of the family and society. They must be properly guided by this virtue of education so as to make their lives more safe and peaceful. Otherwise, they will be the victims in this society. Let us have the experience of, the words of experience of another great thinker, the author of the book, Peace, Power and Plenty, Sri Orison Swett Marden. He says, if children were taught mental chemistry as they are taught physical chemistry in their schooling, we are all very familiar with the physical chemistry. Physical chemistry is a branch of chemistry which deals with the physical properties of an element. But he is insisting us to teach mental chemistry also in addition to physical chemistry. He says, if our children were taught mental chemistry as they are taught the physical chemistry, there would be no ailing pessimists. There would be no ailing pessimists in the society, no victims of the blues. We should not see so many long, dejected, gloomy faces everywhere. We should not see so many criminals, so many sorrowful, tragic failures in every rank of the society, in every walk of life. So please teach our children the mental chemistry also. What is that? Ultimately, it ends up in teach them morality, teach them character, teach them wisdom. Martin Luther King, one of the great architects of the United States, while defining the importance of education in human society, he proclaims the prosperity of any country depends not on the abundance of its revenues, nor on the strength of its fortifications, nor on the beauty of its public buildings, but it consists in number of its cultivated citizens, in its men of education, enlightenment, and character. Here are to be found its true interests, its chief strength, its real power. Why the great visionaries insist about moral and ethical education to the populace at large? The reasons are quite dominant. As we all know, the materialism that is prevailing in the world today, it is creating tremendous stress, not only in the workplace, but also in our residence. In a materialistic consumerist society, demands exceeds ability. Struggling to acquire whatever we desire by working overtime, we sacrifice our family life, our relaxation, health, and totally neglect our spiritual life. See, this is the negative effect of, or this is the shortcoming of the good education system. As Vivekananda rightly said, which I mentioned in the beginning, that education which encourages you to procure more food and prosperity will be very glorious in the beginning. Later on, it will decline and deteriorate. It will outburst all the jealousies and the negatives that were hiding in the inner personality of an individual. See, these are the negative effects of materialistic way of life. Dr. Rudenstine, the president of Harvard University, cautioned us in these words. In the end, education is fundamentally the human process. It is a matter of values and significant action, not simply information and knowledge, but how to create a humane and a just society. Jacques Martin, a philosopher, says education is not animal training, rather, education is human awakening. As Nani Palkiwala rightly said, enlightened citizens cannot be produced in a factory, but they have to come through good education system. Here we must understand the importance of a human being. Very unfortunately, man is after material prosperity. Man is belittling himself. Man is underestimating himself. The container is being valued more than the content. Again, I want to quote Albert Einstein. He says, he narrated an instance that took place in the conference that was aimed for astronomers. A certain distinguished astronomer once declared in a scientific meeting. What did he declare? To an astronomer, man is nothing more than an insignificant dot in the infinite universe. In the scientific meeting, a distinguished astronomer declared that man is nothing more than an insignificant dot in the infinite universe. Einstein, who was present at that meeting, he observed and he said, I have often felt that, but then I realized that the insignificant dot, who is man, is also the astronomer. The person who is making this statement, a mere man, is also an astronomer. See, this is the beauty of a great scientist, Albert Einstein. But at the same time, on another occasion in 1946, Albert Einstein cautioned about the stand of the galaxy of scientists of his contemporary world. He says, the new type of thinking is essential if mankind is to survive and move to higher levels. The unleashed power of an atom has changed everything except our way of thinking. Unfortunately, almost all scientists are economically completely dependent, and the number of scientists who possess a sense of social responsibility is so small that their voice is negligible. You have two categories of scientists. The bigger category, they are economically very poor. They work according to the instructions of rich people who sponsor their projects. At the same time, the people, the other strata, the people who always think about the well-being of the society, are so small in number that their voice is very, very negligible to the rest of the world. When we confined education only to reading and writing, when we confined education only to the intelligentsia strata, we invited all such problems in the modern society. Sa vidyaya vimuktaye. Going back to the pages of Upanishads, you come across Acharyopadesha, a special chapter in Taittiriya Upanishad. Perhaps the first convocation address in human history, which beautifully advises every individual who is going out of the Gurukula system of education after pursuing Vedantic studies for a period of 12 years. It goes like this. Vedamanu chacharyom te vasinamanushaasti satyam vada dharmanchara swadhyayan ma pramadaha आचार्याय प्रियं धनमाहृत्य प्रजातन्तुं मां व्यवच्छेत्सीः सत्यान्न प्रमदितव्यं धर्मान्न प्रमदितव्यं कुशलान्न प्रमदितव्यं भूत्यैर्न प्रमदितव्यं स्वाध्याय प्रवचनाभ्यां न प्रमदितव्यं देवपितृकार्याभ्यां न प्रमदितव्यं मातृदेवो भव पितृदेवो भव आचार्यदेवो भव अतिथिदेवो भव यान्यनवद्यानि कर्माणि तानि सेवितव्यानि नो इतराणि यान्यस्माकगं सुचरितानि तानि त्वयोपास्यानि नो इतराणि. Like this it continues. We have conveniently forgotten all such great message of ancient India. We stick to only the aspects of Western education, only aiming for filling our bellies thrice a day. This is the greatest danger we invited by neglecting the greatest wisdom of ancient India. Swami Buddhananda Ji Maharaj, who headed Ramakrishna Mission New Delhi in 50s, cautioned the world about its materialistic development after the two world wars. Swamiji says, the progress achieved in many areas has become useless because of our less character. Enduring dams are built, but men are brittle. Prosperity is gained, but this is only for a section of people. Intelligence is used more than what is required. But to produce robots and not men. Power of communication are increased not for spreading love, but venom. Our energy, our skill, our devotion, etc. are used not to build the nation, but to topple our own brothers. Everything is produced more, but only to hide, not to distribute. These are the effects of less character in us. Our weakness is growing stronger and stronger. The same negative effect of materialistic world is being reflected in the words of Conrad Lawrence, the author of the book 8 Sins Committed by Civilized Mankind. He says, under the impact of secular style of life, we kill our very spiritual motivations, our noblest and highest qualities. Bhagavan Das, a great thinker, says, we are familiar with the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. But if we don't add the 4th R, that is religion, the modern education will be successful in producing increased number of rascals in the society. Swami Vivekananda cautioned us, we may read books, we may hear lectures and walk miles, but experience is the one teacher, one eye-opener. We have to learn through smiles and tears also. Experience is the best guide. We should never neglect the concept of experience. As Alvin Toffler, a great thinker, once said, the future illiterate of the world will not be the one who cannot read and write, rather the one who cannot organize knowledge. The world is experiencing beyond doubt today that moral lapses are much more serious offenses than ignorance of grammar and history. Einstein seriously proclaimed that whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters. So, to remain truthful, as Bhagavan Guru Nanak rightly said, truth is the highest virtue, but to remain truthful is a greater virtue. To remain truthful is a must. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar once advised the populace of the country, sincerity is the sum of all moral qualities. Physical bravery is an animal instinct. Moral bravery is a higher and a truer courage. The secret of success is constancy to the purpose, or the words of great thinkers the world has witnessed so far. My dear friends, Leslie Stephen, another great educationalist, defines the importance of moral and ethical education in the life of an individual and in societal welfare also. He says, morality is internal. Morality is internal. The moral law has to be expressed in the form of be this, and not in the form of do this. The moral law must be expressed in the form of be this, and not in the form do this. The only mode of stating the moral law must be as a rule of character. That is very important, as a rule of character. Bhagavad-Gita, the greatest human science, which sheds light on the holistic development of any individual, helps us to know about the ethics in our karma yoga, the working world. I was astonished to see a few, say 50 to 60 commentaries on Bhagavad Gita text being preserved as the reference textbook for management in European universities during my lecture tour there. When I asked Professor Bruno Barb of Genova University, Professor Alberto Perisilo of Turin University, Dr. Piano, the chief advisor to almost 50 universities of Europe, without an iota of doubt, they said, Bhagavad Gita and Kautilya's Arthashastra are the best reference books for management in the Western world. Let us have a look at the ethics recommended by Bhagavad-Gita with respect to work. This I am mentioning at this juncture to see that all my good teachers, I am also a teacher for your information, the elders of the society must keep these postulates in our mind to make our work more effective and ethical. Unless and until we become people of great ethics, we cannot transform people into citizens just by teaching them the alphabets and helping them how to construct sentences, merely confining ourselves just to impart the skill of reading and writing to the next generation. Bhagavad Gita says, responsibilities and privileges always go hand in hand. When I say education is the panacea, education must produce people of responsibility. The education system which can produce people with eminence, with greater fervor, with greater commitment to his individual life and societal welfare life, then only he will be a human resource. Gita says, responsibilities and privileges always go hand in hand. Second aspect is, the greater the responsibilities and duties we undertake, greater will be the privileges and rights we enjoy. Thirdly, to demand rights and privileges without discharging one's duties and responsibilities would be unethical and suicidal. Fourth, when a person discharges his responsibilities sincerely, privileges have to come unsought. Fifth, we have to work without respite. Sixth, we have to work always in the spirit of yajna without selfish motives. Seventh aspect is, we have to learn to renew ourselves daily despite tensions and restlessness that are the characteristics of today's society. Eighth aspect, we have to work to remove the evils and sufferings and to increase good and happiness of the society. Ninth aspect is, as we go on working, we will find that the world is a mixture of good and evil, happiness and suffering. Finally, Gita says, in our attempt to perfect the world, we will end up in perfecting ourselves, and that is ultimately the goal of human life. This is most important. These 10 postulates recommended by Bhagavad Gita is an eye-opening for all of us to make us a human resource. But education, when it is properly imparted to the personalities, it can produce personalities with maturity. Matured personalities are the result of good system of education, I mean. Then what are the characteristics of matured personalities? It is really interesting to know the features, the characteristics of a matured personality. A matured personality has a thorough knowledge of working of his mind. He knows his assets and liabilities. The first aspect. Second aspect is he accepts himself, he loves himself, he takes responsibility of himself. The third aspect is he has an optimistic, cheerful, but realistic attitude towards life and world. He suffers neither from superiority nor an inferiority complex. The fourth characteristic of a matured personality is he has a clearly defined philosophy and goal in his life. He is rational in his thoughts. The fifth criteria is he has sufficient self-control. He is ready to sacrifice his self-interest in order to reach his goals in life. The sixth characteristic is he constantly strives to improve himself without getting frustrated. Seventh, he always tries to see the best in himself and in others. Eighth characteristic is he accepts and integrates evil and suffering as a part of life and stepping stones to a better life. Ninth characteristic is he has a place, a definite routine for everything in life. Last, the 10th one is he has a keen sense of humor without becoming a buffoon. This is joy and not fun. This is joy and not fun. Many of our graduates today, they become a laughing stock in the midst of their friends. Joy is a spiritual value. Fun is a secular value. You must have joy in life. You should never become an object of fun in the midst of your friends and your familiars. This is most important. Once I was invited to inaugurate a program in Tumkur. A personage of national reputation was guest on the dais. After listening to my inaugural address, this gentleman, he appreciated my talk and said, Swamiji, I enjoyed your words. I shall make a visit to your ashram so that we can have fun. Immediately I said, my dear, if you come to my ashram for fun, you will be very much disappointed. You can have joy in ashramas and never expect fun there. Then that gentleman, who is a national awardee, curiously asked me, Swamiji, then what is the difference between joy and fun? I defined him the definition, the true meaning of the two terms. He felt very happy and contented and finally said, by coming to Tumkur and participating in this program today, Swamiji, I swear that I could learn the difference between fun and joy. He is a good friend of mine today. He accepted the reality between these two terminologies. My dear listeners, my dear friends, many of us doesn't know the difference between fun and joy. We need not become an object of fun. We should not be buffoons in the midst of people. We must give them joy. That is ultimately our innate spiritual nature. Education, educate, to bring out, to draw out, is the great purpose of learning. Before I conclude, my dear friends, here is an excellent book, Supreme Court of India Judgment, 12th September 2002, in the matter of the National Curriculum Framework for School Education, New Millennium. This is a publication of NCERT, New Delhi. My purpose of bringing this book into your kind notice is to make you to know that one of the great judges of Supreme Court of India, by name Justice D.M. Dharmadhikari, while giving his judgment in the Supreme Court, he took the assistance of the advice of most revered Swami Ranganathanandaji Maharaj, the 13th president of Ramakrishna Mattan Mission. Swami Ranganathanandaji is a very popular name in the country today. He toured in more than 20 countries 18 times. He was respected as cultural ambassador of India. He was an ardent guide to our late Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. He was a good friend of Jawaharlal Nehru. When Swami Ranganathanandaji used to deliver lectures on Bhagavad-Gita, the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru used to sit in the forefront in Ramakrishna Mission, Delhi, along with Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, Rajendra Prasad, and such luminaries to listen to the lecture of Swami Ranganathanandaji. Swami Ranganathanandaji addressed very many universities outside India, and he was honored. And for a period of more than 40 years, he was invited to give the guest lectures to the newly inducted UPSC officers in Mussoorie during their probationary training period before they got inducted into the government service, depending upon their cadres. So Swami Ranganathanandaji's words were very seriously quoted in the judgment given by Justice Shriman D.M. Dharmadhikari. These 7 most important objectives recommended by Swami Ranganathanandaji, they are published in the series of Eternal Values for a Changing Society that was first published by Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Mumbai. It is worth quoting, I mean the words of Swami Ranganathanandaji, which really strengthened the judgment of most respected Justice D.M. Dharmadhikari during that judgment. The first objective Swami Ranganathanandaji put forth is the training of our children to an appreciation of our national cultural heritage and to equip them with the desire and the capacity to enhance the same and leave to the posterity a richer legacy. That means to say, make our children to respect their cultural heritage. This is the most important aspect of our education. If our children they behave as if they are strangers, the refugees in their own native land, nobody can save them. The second objective, the training of our children in talents and capacities by which they become productive units of society and the source of its economic strength strength. This type of training programs must be taken care of. The third aspect, the equipment of our children with the qualities of courage and vision to protect our newly won national freedom, to preserve its democratic structure, function, and liberties, and to carry the same to ever wider fields and ever higher levels. This means to say, our children must develop courage and vigor. They must have a great vision to protect our newly acquired national freedom. They must respect freedom. They must respect freedom, respect the motherland, respect the values propounded by the great heritage, so that they can protect the democratic structure, the functioning of the democracy, and to carry on the same thing to still greater heights of our developmental journey. The fourth objective is the training of our children in virtues and graces that will make them emotionally stable individuals and enable them to live in peace, harmony, and cooperation with their fellow citizens. Proper training must be given to the children to inculcate the virtues and graces so that they will be emotionally stable, not only individually, but also they will be capable of managing a good rapport of friendship, brotherliness with other people, so that peace, harmony, and cooperation with the fellow citizens can be established very effectively. The fifth objective, the training of our children in virtues and graces that will make them international in their outlook and sympathizes and enable them to live in peace, harmony, and cooperation with the emerging world community. The fourth objective was to enable them to live in peace, harmony, and cooperation with the inmates of the country. The fifth objective is to make them the universal citizens so that they can establish peace, harmony, and cooperation with the emerging world community at large. The sixth objective is the training of our children to an awareness of the spiritual and trans-social dimensions of human personality and to a converging life endeavor in the realization of this fact in and through life and actions. It's again another beautiful aspect, the objective. We must have proper training to develop our spiritual and trans-social dimension so that the life and our action becomes enriched with respect to spiritual aspects also. Finally, Swamiji says, it is only thus that our education will become a fit discipline to help to continue the march of Indian tradition from an impressive past to a glorious future. Ours is an impressive past. To make it a glorious future, these 6 objectives have to be taken care of. They should be catered to the fullest extent. See, all these 6 objectives were incorporated in the judgment given by Justice D.M. Dharmadhikari in Supreme Court of India in 2002. My dear teachers, what all I referred to the aspects just now. They are all the new education, national education policy aspects. I was invited to speak on Atmanirbhar Bharat and the new education policy propounded by Government of India. To redefine India to Indians, we need the national educational policy. Here, we have to define India to our own Indians, because till date, the syllabus what we have taught to our children could not reveal out the facts and figures, the reality of our history, the greatness of this great country from time immemorial. So, national educational policy has to play a very vital role in making India full of true Indians and with zestfulness and Indianness in their attitude. In this connection, I appreciate our ATME Technical Institute of Mysore for establishing a platform by organizing such a meaningful and wonderful workshop to shed light on the national education policy to all my brothers and sisters who come under the teaching fraternity all over the country. When Sister Bhagyashri told me that we will have the participants from 23 states, I felt very happy, because this is high time for all our teachers to realize our responsibilities, not only in the matter of just completing our academic syllabus as such, but also to make our children the true citizens of this great nation. I have traveled in 10 countries upon invitation to deliver lectures in the foreign platforms, but I feel myself very fortunate to see what an amount of respect the West has got towards India. That is a fact, but very unfortunately, till date, our education system does not reveal out this fact to our own natives, the children of our own country. I know Kothari Commission in brief. I know the national education policy that was introduced in 1985-86. And now I'm going through the national education policy of recent time. Fortunately, the latest one is making its all efforts to make our children to know more about the native, more about our own land. And this is a great step. I appreciate all the great educationalists, the central government, for taking such a laudable step, such a brave step to redefine India to Indians. I thank Dr. Arun Kumar, the chairman of this esteemed institution, Principal Dr. Basuraj, Sister Dr. Bhagyashri, and all the faculty who have strived their might to make this event a great success. Once again, my heartfelt thanks to all the participants in this seminar for their patience listening. I very sincerely request all of you to please visit Ramakrishna ashramas of your places and pursue your further studies by referring to the most valuable publications of Ramakrishna Mutt and Ramakrishna Mission. Swami Vivekananda's message was referred in the Memorandum of Association of UNESCO Memorandum. And even during 150th birthday celebrations of Vivekananda in UNESCO, the whole world felt that it is ultimately high time the whole world must go through the world peace message propounded by Swami Vivekananda. I quoted the great words of most revered Swami Ranganathanandaji. So these are the illustrations before us to know that the galaxy of monks of Ramakrishna order, they are doing their might to the best of their ability to enrich the field of education in our country. And this is high time for all our teachers and all our educationalists to go through the ancient wisdom of Sanatana Parampara so that Bharat will be Vishwaguru. Once again, it was Vishwaguru earlier, but we had forgotten our own innate nature, something like a sheep that got separated in a forest from its, a tiger which got separated from the flock of sheep in the forest. And ultimately, the small tiger started behaving like a sheep. But when the truth was revealed that it is none other than a tiger, it felt ashamed about its own status. And finally, it came back mentally to the state of a tiger. The same thing has happened even in the history of our country. Now we need not create newly the tigers in our society. We have to remove the mindset. We have to remove the mindset of the sheep, of the people, majority of the populace, and make them to realize that even today when we scratch the skin, still the blood of rishis is flowing through our veins. And this is a Herculean task, a very high, tough task before our teachers to execute. And I'm very optimistic that our teachers can do to the best of their ability this great task and rediscover India, redefine India to our Indians. Once again, I thank all our organizers for this great opportunity. Thank you one and all. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Good afternoon, all. Dear participants, if you have queries, raise your hands. Now you can interact with Swamiji. On behalf of ATM College of Engineering, I would like to thank Sri Veereshananda Saraswathi Swamiji for sharing his valuable knowledge about the process of education. Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, dear participant, there is a technical issue with chat box in MS Team, and we are resolving the same. Till that, feedback link will be shared in the ATAL FDP ATMEC WhatsApp group. Kindly submit your response.